Hey guys, it's Maymay and welcome back to part 2 of our altered 49 and Market mini album. So if you were here for part 1, we did our eyelets, we edited all of our pages, and I would encourage you to head back to part 1 to see how all that went before you start on part 2. All right, let me show you what I did. I took the liberty of getting ahead a little bit and I want to show you. So because we made so many edits in throughout this book, and in the past, we've been able to kind of cut a lot of the same measures and then just glue them down for covering pages, I went through and measured every spot for what size cardstock I wanted here. So you can see this one needs 8¼ by 6, and I just wrote it directly on the book. There's no sense in not, you're going to glue over this and cover this up. So I wrote that one there, and I went through every section, even the small one. So 3¾ by 6, 7 7/8 by 6, and the same here. All right, so let me show you how I got my measures. Let's start on this inside flap because I want to show you the differences, okay? So when I put my ruler down here and I avoid the score mark, I land at exactly 4 inches on this page. Now, because I like to have a little black edge all the way around my cardstock that I glue down, I'm going to subtract 1/4 inch. That 1/4 inch, when I center it on the page, is going to give me 1/8 inch over here and 1/8 inch over here of the black showing through or showing around the page. Now for height, we know this is a 6¼ piece. So I'm just going to take it to 6 so I can get that even mat all the way around. So this flap is 3¾ by 6. But the reason you can't just use that number everywhere, like we can't just flip this over and do the same, is because this one's a little different. Because we avoided that score line on the back, it gives us an extra 1/8 inch on the front. Okay, now you might not can see that, but right here is where this ends. And do you see how it's over 4? Okay, so it's over by 1/8. So this page that I want to put here, I'm going to cut 3 7/8 by 6. So I get the same border all the way around, the same 1/8. Okay, so that's why I like to just measure this page inside. I laid this in and I'm avoiding score marks. Okay. So that means I've got this ruler laying on 8 1/8. So I'm going to cut this page to 7 7/8 to take that 1/4 inch off. Now it's easy at the top. We didn't edit the height of these pages, so they're all 6 inches. That makes that super easy. It also means our cardstock is going to really stretch. That's a good thing. All right, 7 7/8 by 6 here. This page, remember how we cut it down to 6¼ by 6¼ because we did that pocket? So we can use 6 by 6 here, which means I do have this paper pack that I'm using in a 6 by 6. I can pull from there and use a whole page. All right, on the inside, here's how I measured this one. I'm going to cover this as one full sheet. I'm going to do this as its own section, this little 4 by 6 that I did here. And I'm doing this as its own section because that's a pocket, remember? So that's that page. When we look on the back side, you can see that it ended up being 7 7/8 by 6. There's a lot of that measurement in here. Now this page I'm doing a little bit weird, okay? So I'm going to show you. I really want to treat this page as its own page, and I want to treat this little strip as its own strip. I think it'll be neat to show the movement here. So I measured. This page ends up being 6 inches wide, and when I take my 1/4 inch off, it gives me 5 3/4. But my height is still that 6 1/4, so I'm just going to cut it down to 6, so I get 5 3/4 by 6. Okay. This little flappy flap, on the other hand, is going to need a piece that is 1 1/4 because it measures just at 1.5, and then of course by 6. But when I go inside this book, I'm going to make a change. Instead of treating this as 2 pieces here, I'm going to treat it as one. And I'll tell you why. I don't have enough room on either side of my magnet to cut a thin enough piece to get a good adhesion on both sides. So I'm going to treat this as one full page. So I've measured this as one whole page, which is 7.5, which means I need a 7 1/4 piece. And for some reason, I wrote my measure wrong. So it's good that I'm going through here. So you might do the same. You might do it twice, measure twice, cut once, right? So 7 1/4 by 6. And then this page, of course, we have a pocket. So I'm going to measure from the pocket to the fold, and I need to do 6 and then by 6. Now, I will tell you this one's going to look a little funny because I don't quite have a 1/4 inch, but I love the idea of using a piece of 6 by 6. So I'm going to make that happen, even if I have to trim my 6 by 6 down to do it. And then of course here, I just trimmed off a 1/4 inch, and that's what'll go there. On the back side, super easy. It's that same 7 7/8 by 6. And then here we've got 8 by 6. Now that might seem like overkill, but I'm going to tell you something. I'm really bad at just kind of going, oh, I need this many of that and this many of that. And I'm wanting to make the most of my paper pack. So by going through and checking, I know that I won't be wasting anything. And you never know, when I'm making these cuts, these pieces might just show up. You know, I might just have an off cut that ends up being able to fit here. And that would be a bonus as well. So what I'm going to do off camera, no need for you to watch all this, is I'm going to go to my paper pack and I'm going to cut all these pieces and I'm going to glue them down, because I think now I'm safe to just cover, because I don't want to do a thumb hole here. I'm just going to have it pull out like that, and everything else is fine to be covered. So let's do that. All right, you guys, are you ready? Let's flip through this paper though. So this is that floral line from Cardabella, and I just think it's so pretty. And I went through and I really like putting the measurements down because I felt like I got the most of my paper. I really played around. I used some 6 by 6 pieces, like this one is a 6 by 6 piece. Anywhere I could fit a 6 by 6 in, I did, because I'm trying to use both. This is a 6 by 6, and I like how they're working seamlessly together. How pretty is this paper though? Now, something I did here, I cut one too many pages at this measurement. I should have edited this one before I cut it, but I didn't. But I had this strip left over from one of my cuts from a 6 by 6. I think it was from a 6 by 6. So I just glued it down, and I like it. It's okay with me. I feel like the more we do this, the more movement we get in the album anyway. Also, something I realized, and you probably saw it already, you know, I cut this off of this end of the page and glued it down here and then added page. So it might be best just to cut a piece and glue here and then just edit this to glue down, so you don't have to have this extra piece. But I really do kind of like the thickness that this added doing the way we did it. So do whatever you want to do. But I was showing it to Shannon this morning. I was like, I really didn't have to do that, did I? And I didn't realize it till after the fact. And sometimes it happens when you're creating. All right, so we are ready to do the next step. Now, I think what I'm going to do really quick, because I'm really bad about this, I'm going to go ahead and make my insert for this pocket. And the reason I'm bad about it, maybe I'll make the inserts for all the pockets. I tend to leave that for last, and then sometimes I won't really do my best on it. So what I would like to have is a tag sticking out of here, like a pull tag, if that makes sense. So let's do some measuring. So we know this piece is 6 1/4 tall, okay? And I would like for my tag to stick out maybe a 1/2 inch. That might be too much, maybe somewhere like 3/8. Now, the thing that's interesting is, because we glued this shut, we've edited the depth of this pocket. I know that makes sense to you when I say it like that, because, we glued in there. Let's turn this ruler around. So what I'm going to do is turn my ruler around and place it in the pocket and see how deep it comfortably fits. And that's about it right there. So if I make a piece that's 6 1/2, I should be in good shape. I really will probably cut, not 6 1/2, but 6 inches. And I really will probably cut it a little shy of 6 inches, so it's not huge at the top. But that's something we can always edit. So if I want a piece that's 6, I've got an idea. Let's do this. The width of my pocket is 4, but I'm going to go to 3 3/4 on this. I don't want it to be super, super tight. So I'm going to go 3 3/4 by 12. And this again is the 49 Market paper that matches the album. And so I'll have a piece like this, and I'm going to just fold this in half. Let's score it though, because I want it to be nice and crisp inside the pocket. So I'm going to flip it and score both sides. If you've never seen me do that, a lot of times when I'm working with this really thick, rich paper, it works best to kind of tell the fibers on both sides, hey, I want you to fold right here. Sometimes you just get a better result by doing that. I find I do that a lot with my thicker papers. All right, so there's that. Now let me show you what I want to do. Now I want this to look like a tag, and I really want the folded end to be what comes out of the pocket. Reason is, if I do this end, I give myself a lot more loose edges that can be bent and torn over time. So I like using this end for that. So I'm going to go to my angle punch. I love having these quick, easy punches, right? So on the folded end, I'm going to angle punch 2 corners, and that gets me my little tag shape. Now, what I want to do is do a test run and see how it fits in the pocket. Many times you have to edit. We're making this up. There's no flat formula for this. So you can see that that's a little snug. And the reason it is because of my glue, which is living right here. So that means I'm going to need to cut this down a little bit more. So let's go back to the trimmer. And I could have done this before punching it, but I really thought it was going to fit. So back to the trimmer. And let's cut it down another 1/4 inch. It won't hurt anything. So we have 3 3/4. So let's go 3 1/2. And let's just repunch our corner. Now let's see how this one fits. So we'll open the pocket at the top. I'm going to slide that in, and that is much better. It's still a little snug, but let's work it in and then take it out and put it back in again. Sometimes you just have to do that with the glue just to kind of get it moving in there. And that's about as deep as I want it to go anyway, because I want it to stick out. So let's bring it in and out. And if I feel like it's too tight, it's pretty tight, I also can do this. This is another thing we can do. I'm going to pull this into the camera a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll take my ruler and just kind of work that open a little bit, because if I got a little bit happy with the glue, that can sometimes cause me some catching issues. Let's see if that's better. Much better. So I've decided to do a little more off. I feel like it's still too tight. So let's trim a little bit more off. So let's just do 1/8 of an inch here and see if that helps. Okay, there we go. And that'll get better over time too. This is a good example of why you don't want to use sticky tape. My glue is dry, so I can get in there and work it a little bit and edit it and make that go. But if I use sticky tape, it's never dry. So every time that catches, it would stick. But this is what I'm looking for. I want that little tag sticking out. This is a perfect place for journaling. Even if you make it so small you can't put pictures on it, which nowadays you can print pictures pretty much any size. But if you do, you can use this for journaling. So there's that one. Okay, so on page 2, if we open this up, we have this pocket here on the side. I want to go ahead and make the insert for here as well. And my plan is to use a piece that is 5, because 5 fits in there pretty snugly, and I want it to be snug, and it's 10 long. I'm going to score this in half and have a piece that's 5 by 5 basically for photos, but twice. It'll be a booklet, right? So let's score this in half. So again, the measurements of this piece are 5 by 10. So I'll fold that, crease it down. Now, this can live in this pocket 2 ways. One, you could use the opened end and put both pieces in like this, and that can live right there. Or you can open one end, okay, and place it in like this, because remember, this is in a pocket, so it can go like that and close shut. Now, the only thing that might cause this issue is that's going to hang over our magnet, and the more layers we put in, it might make it harder to close. But if you just slide it in here like this, then it's just magnet to magnet pretty much, and that'll work great. But that's an insert for here, so we know we have that one. So let's look at this guy. So we have a pocket here. Now, we have a lot of options here because we have a bigger area. One thing I'm going to do here, because when I glued these down, I was very generous with my glue. I'm going to take my ruler and slide it in there and just gently open as much space as I can. You want to be gentle because you don't want to rip this off, but I just want to get it as open as I can so I can see how wide it really is. For this pocket, for me, I'm going to do a piece that's 5 by 12. I'm going to score it in half at 6. And then I'm going to put this into that section. This will give me a little more space for photos and journaling and decorating. But I'm not going to need a whole lot of space, y'all. This album is going to have a lot of real estate. So we won't need a whole lot of extra space. But let's put this one in. So we open this back section up. And again, same thing. I can put the whole thing in or just a flap. I'm going to put a whole thing in because it'll cover the magnet. But see, now we have that nice space there, and it's in the pocket. And we can always put more tags and ephemera and pretties in that pocket as well. All right, so we have other space here for photos, lots of space for photos, lots of space here, but I want to add even more. So remember these little guys that we did a while ago? Let me show you my plan. So 49 and Market makes these little waterfall pieces. You've seen me use these before. They come in this packaging. I've got one of the 6 by 8s, and I also got 2 of this size. These are the 4 by 6s. That's what I'm going to put in here. Look how many photos we're fixing to have space for, right? When you close these, they look like this, okay? They also come with these little pieces. So this guy comes with 1 and this pack comes with 2. And I think I'm going to utilize these this time. I may do a magnet, but I might do these because I think they're cute. So we'll see. All right. Here's the deal. I'm going to use these in these center sections. You remember I told you I was inspired to do these holes because of a We Are short that they had done, like an Instagram reel. And what they did, and you might want to do this too, was they ran their ribbon through, or I think they used thread. They ran their thread through, and they just took pieces of the decorator paper and folded it and made little booklets and poked some holes, threaded it through, and put it in. We're going to do something similar, but for these little guys right here, I want them to be easily removed in case you want to take them out and use them as brag books or to take them out to fill them up with pictures, etc. So for the short little guys like this, I'm going to put them in, but I'm just going to use ribbon inside here to hold this on. Okay. Now you might be thinking this is going to be rough because you're just asking that piece of paper to hold it. When we add more cardstock, when we layer this up, it's going to get sturdier, and the ribbon itself will probably lay more across this than anything else. So you could glue the ribbon down if you wanted to and then tie it through, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to let it float because I really want this guy to be able to easily just come out so I can have my ribbon and slide it under and open it and pull it out. Okay, so that's how we're going to do this one. Now this guy has to have a little edit. All right. So this is my first set of eyelets. This is my second set, and that's where he's going to live. Now I did a little research, did a little looking at him, and here's the thing. If these guys have a gusset. They have them built in, if I can get it open. They have a built-in gusset here and a built-in gusset here, which we're not going to use. We're going to let them be flat, okay? But because of that gusset, when I close this down and I put this guy here, when I close the book, I'll show you what happens. So if I put him in there, do you see how he kind of sticks out past the page? Not a big deal. He doesn't stick out past the album, but I had a thought. I don't really want him to stick out that far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this gusset up like this, okay? And then I'm going to cut away some of this end so that I can also have this one folded like this with that gusset all the way over to make this a little shorter. Let me flip it over and you'll see what I'm saying. So to make this guy a little shorter altogether, we're just going to edit this section by folding the second score line, not the first. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, let's measure how much we want to edit off of here. I think this is 1/2 inch. It's pretty close to 1/2 inch. So I think I'll take a full 1/2 inch and we'll see where we're at. So put this in my trimmer on the 1/2 inch. Cut that away. Let's make sure it'll close like I want it to. That's a little tight. You see I'm getting a little bit of resistance on both ends? Let's take a little bit more off. Let's take another 1/4 inch. It won't hurt. So total, I took 3/4 of an inch off. And let's see how that does now. See, I like that spacing here. See how much further away it is? And so I'm going to get a much flatter close that way. So let's do that. And let's corner round it. All right, so he goes like this, and he'll go like this to close. I think I may use the magnet. The reason is my magnet will make sure this closes nice and flush for me. Let's go ahead and put one in. Plus, I've used magnets everywhere else so we can keep it kind of looking neat, and I can always save those closures for something else that I'm doing. So let's pull out, and I'm using big magnets again. I feel like this is a heavy album, and it's got a lot in it, so I don't mind using these big magnets here. So let's peel off one side of our adhesive. And then let's come over here, giving ourselves plenty of room to glue paper down. Somewhere like that. Lift this up. And then we want to make sure we've got everything folded where we want it. Do you see how this gusset is trying to pop? That's one reason I wanted to use the magnet. The reason it's doing that is because in packaging, this is the score line that's folded. So when it gets shipped to you, this one is already worn in. Does that make sense? So we're trying to use that second one. So why don't we work it a little bit with our bone folder too? See if we can get that to lay a little flatter, and it does. And now when we bring this guy over, we're using the fold that it was already trained to use in the packaging. So we're just going to lay this down. Now, I don't want to be like super, super tight because we got to add to it. So let's let it lift and put that down. I think that'll give us enough room. Plus, this guy's going to live in an area that it can do this. It's got plenty of space. It's like 1/2 inch where it can expand. All right, so there's that. Now, one thing I would suggest, this is just me, I wouldn't come in here and cover all of these with decorator paper. It just adds bulk. I would only add photos here, okay? Let's go through and do some bending. See how this one is super flat? It needs to be bent and creased. So let's do that. But I would only put photos in here because adding decorator paper to every one of these is just going to add bulk. And even if you're giving this to someone as a gift, this makes perfect sense that this is for photos. So you might just maybe make one little Post-it note or something that goes inside here that says add photos to these flaps or something like that. But I would put decorator paper maybe here and here for sure. But I would not here just because of bulk. Plus, you don't need it there. By the time there's pictures in there, all that's going to be covered up and look beautiful. So let's talk about putting this guy in here. I really want to sort of sew him in with ribbon. I want to make some holes to put him in. So here's what we're going to do to start. Let me say this too. If this is not your thing, what I'm doing right now, you can always just glue this piece in. You can glue him onto a full page and he's still there, or you could even glue him in the back right here and he just adds for photos there. That's what these are meant for, but I'm just trying to play and do something a little different. So what I'm going to do is eyeball center this guy, okay, over those holes. See where they are? And what I'm going to do is make a pencil mark in the center of where those holes are. So there's one. Just make sure you can see it. And there's the other. Okay, so I'm going to bring that up. So now I have these holes or these marks telling me where I need to make holes. Now, what I saw them do on the We Are Instagram reel that I saw, they took their hole punch, okay, and they punched it, but only half of a hole. So like a half moon, okay? So I'm going to lay this flat. I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to center that pencil mark, but only halfway. I'll show you what I mean. It'll be better if I just show you like this. So we just kind of take a half bite, not a hole, right? So I'm going to do that on the other end as well. So now I have two little half bites, and if we open it up, we'll have whole circles for us to thread this through, right? But it makes me nervous because of this just being paper. If I were to thread this through, hold with all the weight it's going to have, that it won't be strong enough. So here's my thought. Let me show you. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to use some ribbon to reinforce this, okay? So my thought is I'm going to run this ribbon around and use sticky tape to tape it down so it'll be nice and sturdy. So let me get some sticky tape. So again, I have these leftover pieces from Eileen's. I have other sticky tape, but these pieces that are left over, I don't want to waste. So I'm going to use this. Now this ribbon is 5/8 of an inch wide, okay? So I'm going to give myself almost that in adhesive. So that would be 5/8. I'm going to go like just a 1/16 of an inch under. So it'll cover almost the whole piece. I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 of those. And I've got another scrap if I need it, but I think this might do it. All right, let's go back in here. And this is where I'm going to get brave. Let's check it. Let's make sure that this is the right width because I don't want that hanging out. Oh, look, I'm glad I checked because it's still a little wide. Let me trim it a tiny sliver. So let's test this one. And it's hidden. That's good. All right. So now I'm going to release the backer paper. And I'm just going to split the difference here. What I mean is I'm going to lay this over those holes, even on either side. You'll see what I'm saying by even on either side. I'm just going right over those holes with this adhesive, okay? Now I'm going to turn it over and do the back as well because I really want this to be sturdy. While I'm doing this, I'm thinking of other things you could use to be nice and sturdy. And one thing is fabric tape, if you wanted to use that. I don't have a fabric tape that I think is sturdy enough for right here. I have some decorative fabric tape, but this I want to really hold on, you know? So here's what I'm doing. You can see here that I've split the hole where it's over the hole. We're going to go back and cut the hole back out. No worries. And I'm going to take some ribbon enough to wrap around. And so we're going to place this into that adhesive. This is going to let it be nice and sturdy and held together well. And because it's black, it kind of blends in. I think that's pretty. So I'm going to flip this over. And now I'm going to reveal this side. Don't you love using every single tiny bit of your leftover adhesive? I do. All right, I'm going to pull this down. And I'm only going to go to the middle here because I think I'm going to overlap this. So I'm going to trim some of this away. Press that in. And then I'm going to bring this one over the top of that. I'm a little off center down there, but it won't be a big deal. All right, I'm going to peel some of this up. I'm going to cut that away. And I'm going to fold this under and glue it down. So I'll just put that like that and put a little crease in it. And then I will glue this into place like this. Okay, so my first glue will go inside. Okay. Then I will lay this down onto that. This feels like mixing my sewing hobby because we're using fabric. So I've just made like a little flap. Okay. And then my next glue will go on the inside here so I can press that little flap down. Nice and neat and clean. That's what we're looking for. And now we have all that extra stability right there, right? So we need to go back and repoke our holes. And let me show you. You can see them through here, okay? So I'm rubbing that in, and you'll be able to see the indent of where your hole is. It's right there. Now, on camera, you might not can, but I can see it here. So I'm going to put this in and redo that little half hole right here with my crocodile. It will cut the ribbon. Now, it didn't cut it perfect, so I'm going to trim that with my scissors, and we're going to treat that area so it doesn't fray as well. And again here, let me get it where you guys can see the indent. See how I can see the hole? There we go. See how I can see it? So I'm just able to see it by doing that. Come in here and poke in my hole. All right, so let's clean that up. Because of the way we do the adhesive, it's not really going to fray. But to be safe, I'm going to take a little bit of my art glitter glue and just rub it in here, kind of treating it like fray check. If you have any fray check, you can just do that. But this will just kind of clean that up and keep that nice and snug in there. There we go. Let's open it up and see what we've done on the inside. Looks pretty good, right? Looks pretty good. Okay, so now we can sew this into our book. I think I'm going to wait to put this in the book. And the reason is I need to cover it with its decorator paper and things like that. But it's going to live right here. And we'll just sew the ribbon through. See, look how well we got our holes to line up. We'll just sew the ribbon through, and that will hold it in place. Now, on our other two, we're not going to have to do all that. The reason we're not is because let me show you how short they are. They go between the holes. So I'm just going to run ribbon and just catch this guy, and I won't have to do all that fancy footwork with him. Okay, let's cover these guys in cardstock. So I'm going to cover all three of these. I'm going to cover the outside of both, okay? And then I'm going to cover the flap and this inside. That's all I'm covering. I'm not going to cover where the photos go, all right? And I'm just going to do it by measuring each one because I've never covered these fully in cardstock. I'm not sure the measurement. So this is 4 inches wide, and this piece is 6 inches long. So I'll do it 1/4 of an inch smaller, and then I will round the edges so that everything matches. And you go ahead and do that too. And once we have that done, we'll get right back together. So I thought I would use one of these little pieces, and I thought since I was going to, I would show you how they work, okay? So if you notice on the back, they're bradded in. Do you see they have little brads? I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to take one off. And I'm going to take one off to start with to see what I'm working with. So I've got my little piece, okay? And then I'm going to take this guy off. And yep, that's what I thought. He comes off as well, and your string is separate. So we'll have to add that. And it's not elastic. It's just string, okay? So I've separated everything out here, and I've got these two pieces that are going to be my cover pieces. I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. Now, don't glue the back side down yet because it's going to hide our workings. But I'm going to go ahead and glue these into place. So there's one. Open this up and glue the other. Here's the other. Just like that. Now what we want to do is we want to go to our little pieces here, okay? And I'm going to lay one on the top and then lay one here so I can decide where I want them to live. And that looks about right. I'm going to look at the camera to see. This might need to come this way a little bit. You might be a little off. Let's turn it this way. All right, so that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is just go through there and poke a hole just through that top piece of cardstock. I don't want to go all the way through. I've just given myself a mark of where to poke the hole. Then I'm going to pick this up and use that piece to tell me where to put my hole, or use that little starter hole we made. And I can see it over here as well. See it right there? Now I don't mind if it goes all the way through. And you could poke this with a hole punch if you wanted to, but I just use my pokey tool. All right, and now we're going to put one of these guys back. Take a brad and put him back through him. So now I'm going to open this up. You guys, look, I made a mistake and put it in the wrong spot. You might have caught that when I was showing you how to do it. So don't do that. Don't make the same mistake I did. Make sure you poke the right hole. What happened was when I poked the top, I went through further than I thought I did, and I could see the top hole there too. But now I've got him where he goes. This is going to get covered up anyway, so I'm not going to stress. He'll be under there. But I sure did just poke that same hole. All right, so now let's take this guy, put his brad back in, put him through the hole, and then flatten it out. And if you're like me, the older you get, the harder these little things are to see. Tell me that in the comments if you feel the same. So check it out. Isn't that cute? Now what I'm going to do is take this little guy and run him underneath. I'm going to put him under the bottom one. You technically don't have to tie these on. You technically could just start wrapping, I just like to tie them so they don't come off whenever somebody opens the book and looks at the pictures. So I'm going to tie a little knot, and it adds a little bulk, but I'd rather do that than take a chance of losing it later. All right, and then this guy can then be wrapped around to close like so. But the best part is when we open this up and we take our other pieces that we cut, we can cover up our hardware super easy. It's going to get closed in and you're never going to see it. All right, so our hardware is all covered up. Our little book is ready to go in our big book, right? And this just wraps around like this for closing. And it's super cute. And because of string, it'll give us all the room we need when we add photos in there. Now, I do need to cover the back, but it's ready. So here's my little booklets all ready to go into the book. So let's talk about how we're going to put them in. So let's start with the little guys. So they're going to be super easy, I do believe. I think I'm just going to use some organza ribbon. I had thought about using 3 ribbons, but the ribbons don't look as good on the outside as I wanted them to. So we're just going to use some organza. So what that means is I'm going to stand this up. Now I'm working in the first eyelets, okay? So you can see I'm in the first section, which means it's going to get a small booklet. So I'm going to put my bead threader through and then pull this organza ribbon through like so, okay? And then I'm going to come to the bottom, and this time I'm going to go through the front of the book to pick up my ribbon on the inside. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. It's kind of difficult, but it's hard to show you. I'm going to try to keep it standing up to make it make sense. All right, we'll pull that ribbon back through. Now, before I tighten it down, what I want to do, let's even the ribbon. I'm going to pull that out just a little bit now that I've got it in there, okay? And I'll lay it down. Now, I'm just going to take this guy and feed him through like so, okay? And I'll go ahead and close him just so I can get everything placed where it needs to go. All right, so I've got in there. I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to tie this. Now, I want it nice and snug, and the good thing is with those eyelets, I'm able to do that, right? I'm able to pull it pretty tight. So I'm going to knot this. And what I might do is tie my bows in 3 different areas, because remember, we're putting 3 on here. So I might do 1 here, 1 in the middle, and 1 here so my bows don't end up all in the same spot. This is the part I'm so bad at. This is the part Brenda Berry is so much better at than me, this adding ribbon and all these like thingies. I'm just not good at it. So there's me a knot, and now we'll tie a bow. And I'm hoping this organza will just kind of fill up the spine for me so I don't have to do too much work. It also gives me a place to do a charm or something, and I've got some charms I've collected over time, and I may add something like that here too. All right, so it's too big like that, so let's tighten it in. Pull it super tight. That organza will kind of lock into itself, and look how much body that gives us. Let's trim it off. So I'm just going to trim here and then something similar like so. And I will fray check those edges. I have some fray check. It's just not here at my desk, but I will come back and fray check that organza. I think it will be good over time. All right, so you can see how light that is. It's not going to be obnoxious because I'm not using any other like solid ribbon. So I've got one tied here, and we'll just go all the way up the side. And won't that be cute? I think it will. All right, so now let's do the same thing. Let's put the middle one in. Oh, and look, see how well he's staying in? Isn't that cool? Now, I will tell you something. Now that I'm doing this, I think I may wait and tie them in at the end because I've got a lot of decorating left to do. And my bow is so cute, I don't really want to flatten it. So I may take this one out now that you've seen how to do it and tie them in at the end. But see how that's going to hold just fine. And with our other one, we're going to stitch it through the holes, but we're going to do exactly the same out here. So I think that's what I'll do. I think I'll remove this guy for now because we're just learning together. And then I will put these in at the end so that I can lay this flat and not worry too much about the bow. I may just lay it flat anyway and see if that keeps its body and not take this one out. But I'm not going to tie the other ones in until, but this is how they will go. So this one will be here, stitched in like so. And then back here, we'll have this little guy ribboned in like this. Won't that be so cute? And all that photo area that we've got. All right, so that is it for today's video. We got a pretty good bit done. We got a lot of covering done, got a lot of the processes figured out, so we're ready to go from here. So we'll decorate and we'll do all the photo spots and things in the next video. But for now, what I want to tell you is happy Thanksgiving. This is it's been fun to be able to film a video for you to watch on Thanksgiving Eve, and I hope you've had a wonderful day. And so enjoy the rest of your evening, and until next time, bye.